morning. Um, Glad you're back. I'm here to share another story and song with you. I hope you enjoyed the stories and songs so far. I just want a reminder that the stories and songs that I've been sharing from my first book, Ballads and Tales of the Woods, they're available to you at my website, earthtalesandbirdsong.com. All the written material from Ballads and Tales of the Woods, the short stories and songs and poems are there. I'm going to share a story with you this morning that's from Ballads and Tales of the Woods. And this story is called Little Billy. I wrote this story years ago. My buddy Jeffrey Gale, the basket maker, and I, when we were first looking for land in the Ozark Mountains, we happened upon a number of farms, and we noticed that many of these small homesteads had billy goats. And we kind of learned that some of those billy goats were going to wind up on the dinner table or the breakfast table. So it kind of got me thinking about being a billy goat, and so I decided to write this little story, and it's called Little Billy, and it goes like this. Once upon a barnyard, there was a billy goat. His name was Little Billy. Now, Little Billy, he liked being on that farm. He'd roam around the barnyard and he'd say hi to everybody like the horse and the cow, and he liked to roam around a lot by himself. And one day he meandered over by the fence, and when he was looking across the fence, he saw that wood line over there, and he thought, you know, I've never really been in any of those woods before. They look really cool and shaded. Maybe I ought to go over there. Well, he looked around, he thought, I know I can jump this fence. So he took 2 or 3 steps back, ran up, right over the fence, and into the woods. Well, when he walked into those woods, he saw things he had never seen before. He saw mosses and big old mushrooms growing up out of the mosses, and wildflowers, but were purple and blue and yellow and white, all these colors. And as he moved deeper into the woods, and the cooler it got and the more shade there was, he began to hear water running. And he thought, ooh, what's that? So he moved up closer, and sure enough, there were these big boulders rising up out of the ground, and there was a stream running through them. And he thought, ooh, that looks refreshing. So Little Billy walked over, and on the side of a rock wall, there was water trickling down. So Little Billy walked over there, and he began to lick the water. And he thought, I don't even have to drink out of a bucket. Just lick this rock. But that's when he noticed there was an old tree trunk had fallen. And on that tree trunk was a squirrel. And the squirrel was just standing there on its haunches, chewing an acorn. Little Billy said, hey. The squirrel hopped down. The squirrel said, hey, how are you doing? Little Billy said, oh, I'm doing fine. I'm exploring the woods, having a good time. Say, what do you do around here? The squirrel said, oh, I'm just a squirrel. Hey, are you hungry? Little Billy said, I'm always hungry. The squirrel said, good. Then you should take a bite of this acorn. Little Billy said, no thanks. I don't like acorns, they're kind of dry, stick in your teeth. The squirrel said, Little Billy, this is a magic acorn. Take a bite. Well, Little Billy looked at that acorn. He said, I don't think so. I'm good. The squirrel persisted. He said, Little Billy, take a bite. It'll put hair on your chest. Little Billy said, I got plenty of that already. No thanks. The squirrel said, come on, Little Billy, take a bite. And that squirrel pushed that acorn right up, as close as he could get it to Billy's long snout. Well, Little Billy, he looked down at that acorn. It was almost as if his teeth and his lips took on a life of their own, because the next thing he knew, his mouth opened up and his teeth just bit right into that acorn. Well, when he did, strange things began to happen. His whiskers began to twitch, his tail began to go up and down, his cheeks puffed up, and Little Billy, whoo, and he spit the acorn out. When he looked up, the squirrel was gone. But when Little Billy looked down at his feet, the acorn was gone too. but in its place was something wrapped up in really colorful paper, and it smelled good. Little Billy pushed the paper out of the way with his snout, and when he looked down, there was a hamburger. Big old hamburger with a glob of cheese on it. And little Billy looked down at that and he thought, ooh, I've seen the human beings eating them. This might be good. So little Billy, he began to nibble around the edges, and it did taste good. But then he thought, you know, I should save what's left and take it back to the barnyard to share with my friends. So little Billy, he pushed the paper back around that hamburger, and he got it up into his mouth, and he turned around, he walked through the woods, went over there, jumped back over the fence, and right when he got on the other side of the fence, who should come walking up but the big barnyard bull. The big barnyard bull said, "Hey, little Billy, how you doing?" Little Billy said, "Oh, I'm doing fine. Oh, got a hamburger in my mouth." Little Billy spit the hamburger out on the ground. He said, "Oh, I'm doing fine, Mr. Bull. How are you?" The bull said, "I'm doing well, thanks. But, hey, what's that food you're eating?" Little Billy said, "Oh, hi, Mr. Bull. That's a hamburger. You know, human beings make them. They make them when they get through killing the steers and the cows and the bulls." Killing the bulls. And the bull, he looked down at that hamburger and he said, "Smells familiar." And then the bull began to kick the dirt out with his hooves. Little Billy, he said, "Look, Mr. Bull, I didn't make it. I was out in the woods minding my own business. A squirrel came along and told me it was a magic acorn. Look, human beings, they eat them all the time. They sell them everywhere on every corner from Timbuktu to Kalamazoo. It was magic." Bull looked down at that hamburger and he began to kick the dirt even harder. Little Billy, he said, "Look." And when the bull turned to look, little Billy reached down, he grabbed that hamburger in his mouth, and he turned and started running as fast as he could go. Well, that little Billy goat was running with the wind. His tail was in the air. His ears were pressed against his head. He kept looking over his shoulder. He could see that bull. Well, the bull was running hard. Little Billy could feel the hooves pounding, getting closer and closer. Little Billy ran toward the corner of the barn, and when little Billy came around the corner of the barn, there down by the end of the drive by the barn was a wagon. Next to the wagon was the farmer who owned the billy goat and another man. Little Billy Goat, he picked up speed, and then just right when he got close to those two men, he just slid sideways, and when he came around and looked back, he could see the bull had stopped over by the corner of the barn, kind of hanging out in the shadows, watching little Billy. When little Billy looked up, the farmer said to the other man, "Hey, there's that little Billy Goat I was telling you about. Told you it was kind of weird. He's got a hamburger in his mouth." "Well, look, doesn't make any difference. Just like I told you, I'll sell that little Billy Goat to you for $30. And I'll bet you that little Billy Goat is going to make some of the best goat steaks your family has ever sunk their teeth into." Little Billy, he spit the hamburger out on the ground and he said, "Look, fellas, why don't we just skip the burgers and the steaks? I'll go inside the kitchen and I'll fix us a big old batch of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. What do you say?" Well, the Billy Goat and the farmer and the other man, they went into the kitchen. And do you know, I went by the farm that afternoon just to see what was going on. And the farmer's wife, she saw me and she invited me in for some lunch. And when I walked into that kitchen, I couldn't believe it. There at that kitchen table was the man, the farmer, and the billy goat. They were having their lunch. On the table, there was a stack of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches that high, and they were drinking milk by the quart. And that's the truth.